Greetings, salutations, everybody. Welcome to AMC Mailbag. Now, this is what AMC Mailbag is. As you know, we have a Monday through Friday show called AMC Movie Talk. We talk about all the latest movie news. And at the end of those shows, we do Mailbag, where you can email us your questions anytime to amcmovietalk@gmail.com. Now, unfortunately, we only have time to get to 2 or 3 questions a day, and we get nearly 1,000 questions from you guys a week. So we decided to start this show on Saturdays and Sundays called AMC Mailbag, where all we do is just kick back, relax, and talk a little bit of movies based on your mailbag questions. So first, before we get to the first couple of emails, I want to introduce the people who are joining me. First of all, she is a correspondent with us over at AMC Movie News. She is Miss Clark Wolf. Clark, thanks a lot for joining us today.
Thank you for having me, John.
And, of course, the one and the only, the production manager of AMC Movie News, Mr. Dennis Zen. Dennis, how you doing?
Good seeing you guys. It's been so long.
So very, very long.
I missed you. I barely recognized you two.
Since we've been able to fellowship together. All right, let's get to the first question here. The first question today comes to us from Tucker Hammonds, who writes, with J.J. Abrams pretty much out of the running for Star Trek 3, who would you have write and direct it? And what would you like to see? Dennis, will start with you. JJ's pretty much a foregone conclusion that he's out. So who would you like to see? Who would pique your interest in directing the next Star Trek installment?
I would like to see someone like Neil Blomkamp or Duncan Jones do it. I know,
nice names.
I personally liked, actually I really liked the last Star Trek Into Darkness, but there was complaints from a lot of the more hardcore Trekkies and whatnot, and I feel like someone like a Blomkamp or a Duncan Jones, they might be able to take on maybe a more serious story, and while still having the cool action, sci-fi action and stuff like that. So I don't think that's going to happen, especially with Duncan Jones because he's tied up with World of Warcraft. But I don't know, maybe Blomkamp might do it.
What do you think, Clark?
Matt Vaughn. Matt Vaughn would be my pick. I actually really wanted him to do the new Star Wars reboot. But I think that going off what Dennis said, I think Matt Vaughn's big last couple of movies that he's done might lend itself kind of to that socially conscious idea that a lot of hardcore Trekkies are saying that they missed. But yeah, between Stardust, which has that more like fantastical fun element to Kick-Ass, which is very, present and kind of hard-ass, and then you've got X-Men, so he knows how to do a franchise. So I think Matt Vaughn would be a really cool choice.
I like all your choices. Mine is going to be Rian Johnson, the guy who directed Looper. I really like his narrative sensibilities. He's really got a good grasp of sci-fi, and I think he brings that other element of sci-fi, that more mystery and wonder of the possible, to something like Star Trek, which has just been, under J.J. Abrams, has been more of an action sci-fi series, and I think Rian Johnson could balance that out really well. So I really like all the names you guys have come up with, too. My personal choice would be Rian Johnson, so that's who I would go with. All right, next question comes to us from Xander T. And Xander T. writes, just started watching your show and loving it. Thanks a lot, Xander. I saw Monsters University 3 times and love this prequel. My question is, do you think Pixar should or will do another Monsters, Inc. sequel that might take place after the original? If so, should we see Boo as a child or all grown up? What do you think the story should be about? For instance, could it be about Randall's revenge on Mike and Sully, or that they explore more of the human world where their parents are have mistaken the monsters as scarers rather than comedians? Xander, I had this idea, and I can't remember if I came up with it or somebody else came up with it or if it was a mailbag question before, but I was really hoping that in Monsters University, which I also really liked, by the way. I didn't completely love it like I did the original, but I really enjoyed Monsters University. I was really hoping that the way they would do it would be the movie would start with Mike and Sully talking to Boo, getting ready to go to college, because she would be about that age. So she's grown up now, and she's getting ready to go to college, and we just understand and accept that she's always known the monsters. And I always kind of envisioned that she's getting ready to go off to college, and then the two guys, the whole movie is the two guys telling her about their university experience. That's what I was hoping for. They didn't do it, and that's fine. As far as a third Monsters film, I'm ready for Pixar to either finally get off their rears and give us an Incredibles 2, or give us more of their beautiful original stuff. I think they've done enough with Monsters. I'm glad they did Monsters University. I really liked it, but I'm ready personally to move on from it. What do you think, Dennis? Do you want more Monsters, or are you finished with it?
Well, I still haven't seen Monsters U, but I heard it's pretty good. I just figure if they've just done the prequel, they're probably not going to touch it for a long, long time. You know, I think like between the two movies, it's been like, I don't know, almost 10 years or something like that. So I figure, yeah, do Incredibles 2 instead, or do another original movie.
Clark, what do you think?
I'm a third. I haven't seen Monsters U either, Dennis. And but I remember the original. I remember enjoying it. I remember thinking it was very cute and fun. But it's not my favorite of the Pixar canon. So I'm ready for Incredibles 2 would be great. Or something different. I'm ready for something different.
All right, let's move on to the next question. The next question comes to us from Santino B, who writes, "Hi, John and the whole crew. Greetings and salutations. Word has hit that Zack Snyder was talking about filming Dawn of the Dead 2, the remake with Sarah Polley. Do you suppose that the success of World War Z will speed this production? Also, how would they pick up the story from the last scene on the boat where the dog was being chased by the zombies?" Couple of bits of information on this. Number one, I believe that was a couple of years ago that Snyder was talking to Universal about doing another Dawn of the Dead. I believe that died. So I don't believe Zack Snyder is at all involved with looking at doing another Dawn of the Dead movie. I think that's done. Also, if there was still a possibility of it, I would actually think that the success of World War Z would have hurt the chances for Day of the Dead, or whatever they would have called Part 2 of Zack Snyder's film. I think it would have hurt it because now, there's another zombie movie franchise going, and maybe there would be risk. Even though the first one came first, they would run the risk of it looking to capitalize on World War Z, or looking like a copy of World War Z. I'm not saying that would be fair. I'm just saying that might be the perception. But here's an interesting little tidbit fact. With Zack Snyder, of course, and besides, Zack Snyder's busy with another little film he's going to be working on called Man of Steel 2. So that's going to be tying up his time for the next little while. But here's an interesting little tidbit. Zack Snyder, the director of that Dawn of the Dead film, is, of course, just directed Man of Steel. Do you know who his main writer was for Dawn of the Dead? James Gunn, the director of the upcoming Marvel film, Guardians of the Galaxy. So go on back, watch that Dawn of the Dead film again, and soak in the wonderful knowledge that you're watching the work of two big comic book directors right now, Zack Snyder with Man of Steel and James Gunn with Guardians of the Galaxy. Anyway, Clark, how do you see this whole thing?
I'm gonna go build right on top of what you just said. Go home and watch Slither, another lovely James Gunn film that more people should see, I think, and you're going to see a lot of people who you recognize now from way back when. But this is small potatoes for Zack Snyder at this point. There's no way he's going to go back, and I think we've established that. Dawn of the Dead's actually my favorite Zack Snyder movie, believe it or not. I think I've talked about that on the show, but I'm a horror junkie, like you guys know. But he did an excellent job with that. I mean, I think it'd be cool if they want to continue the Dead franchise, or rebooting the Dead franchise. It might be cool if he was on as a producer. That might be kind of neat, but I have not heard any updates about this. As far as I know, I don't think there's any movement on it. And honestly, to answer your question about picking up after the dog, and it's been a couple years since I've seen this movie, but I watch it at least once a year. I really like the movie. I'm under the impression that most of the original cast is done for at the end of the movie. So I think that if we were going to get a new installment of the Dead franchise, it's going to probably be all brand new all over again.
Dennis?
While not a horror junkie and far from it, I, like Clark, that Dawn of the Dead reboot movie is actually my favorite Zack Snyder movie out of all the ones he's done. So I would have been excited to see it. It's probably not going to happen considering his success with Man of Steel. And I don't know if I'm right about this, but I think that Dawn of the Dead reboot that Snyder did was one of the first movies that had the zombies like move really, really fast.
Right.
As opposed to the original George Romero, like slow moving zombies. So I think that's kind of cool.
All right, let's move on to the next question. The next question comes to us from Danny, and Danny writes, I read that a movie for the PlayStation game Metal Gear Solid is somewhere in its pre-production stage. I was wondering if you guys had any news or updates about the film. The only news I have about it is stuff that is not brand new. Avi Arad is producing it. He's a longtime comic book guy who produced a lot of comic book films, and it's being set up kind of under his production watchful eye, if you will. And about a month and a half ago, I believe they said that David S. Goyer, who of course wrote Man of Steel and wrote the Dark Knight trilogy for Christopher Nolan, and with Christopher Nolan as well, that he was going to be writing the script. If you're a Metal Gear Solid fan, both of those things are good news. Those are two experienced, capable, and talented hands. But that's all I know. I don't think there's been a lot of serious movement, and if it's true that Warner Brothers is going to fast-track Man of Steel 2, that's going to take Goyer away, I believe, from Metal Gear Solid. But we'll have to see. Dennis, are you very familiar with this game? Because I'm not really familiar with the game. I've played it a little bit, but I don't know much about it at all, really, other than playing it like 3 or 4 times. Are you excited about a film like this? Have you heard anything else about the film that I haven't yet?
No, I haven't really heard too much about it. The only thing I heard lately was it's more of the video game side. Is they have Kiefer Sutherland is going to do the voice acting for the newest game, and they're kind of because there's a guy named David Hayter that had done Solid Snake's voice the whole time, and he I guess I don't know if he's fired, but he's just not going to be in this one. So I think it's the first time he's not voicing it. I'm not too familiar with the franchise. I played the original one on the NES where it was like that top-down view, and that was cool. And I played bits and pieces of other ones, but they're kind of known for their kind of cinematics more than the actual game themselves. People always talk about how awesome the cinematics are. So, yeah, that's pretty much all I know.
How do you see this, Clark?
Yeah, no, I don't have I did a little research. I don't have any updates on that either. But what I did want to say is, come on, Hollywood, just go for it. Like, I feel like we answer these questions all the time about all these awesome sounding video game properties, and everybody's circling it, or they're doing, someone's going to write the script, and then it kind of falls by the wayside. It's like, go for it. Come on, someone be brave. I want the video game franchises to start being awesome and start, like, being present. So make that movie, Hollywood. I don't know.
All right, our next question comes to us from Corey, and Corey writes, thanks for putting on the shows. I love them. Days of Future Past has Cable in it, and Jean is in The Wolverine, which is a sequel to X-Men 3, not Wolverine Origins. With that being said, do you think it's likely that we will see a PHOENIX Saga? I hope so. With all the characters they are bringing on, do you think it's likely we will see the Phoenix? Dennis, what do you think? Do you think that all these things being set up could lead us to a PHOENIX Saga in the movie world?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, it was hinted at in the second X-Men and in the third X-Men. And I think even just the inclusion of Jean Grey in the not flashbacks or dream sequences in the Wolverine, which takes place in X-Men 3, I think there's probably going to be even more hints in there. So I think that the PHOENIX Saga is going to take place probably after Days of Future Past.
Clark?
Yeah, let's get some more Phoenix in there. Let's do it. I mean, we talk all the time about needing more female presence and female superheroes, and why can't we get a Wonder Woman movie? Why can't we get this? Why can't we? I mean, this character has been kind of creeping in, and the story has been we've been seeing it in little bits and pieces all over the place, and that's such a cool. It's an awesome story. Fox has the rights. They're not giving them to anybody else, so do it. Go. I want to see it. Word.
I'm not so sure. I think, first of all, we know that Jean Grey isn't really in Wolverine, the upcoming Wolverine film. It's just, as Dennis was saying, it's just a dream, so the character isn't really present there. And I don't know where you got your information saying Cable's in it. I have not heard that Cable's in it. Have either of you guys heard Cable's in it?
Only as rumors, not confirmed.
Yeah, I hadn't heard anything about that. And I think they tried to do some Phoenix stuff with X-Men 3, and that they kind of fell flat on their butts with that one. And I don't know that Fox would be looking to get back on that Phoenix horse anytime soon. So I'm going to go out on a limb and say it could have been cool if they handled X-Men 3 right, which they didn't really. I didn't think X-Men 3 was nearly as bad of a train wreck as a lot of people think, but still, we can at least all agree it was the absolute worst of the X-Men films. I don't think they'll go that route. I really don't. And I think there are other female characters that they should be capitalizing on to give us more stronger female characters. So hopefully I'm wrong. All right, this last question today comes to us from Andrew Gifford. And Andrew Gifford writes, "Hey gang, I was excited to hear that a 5th Terminator film was officially announced, and with Arnold Schwarzenegger returning, until I found out that it was a reboot. While I'm still interested and hope for the best, I'm not sure that a reboot was a good idea. With so much continuity already established, with so much more story potential, why start over?" What do you think, Clark? Is it a good or a bad thing that they're going to do this next Terminator film as a reboot?
Oh boy. Well, on Friday's movie talk show, I had to read this bit of information, and I couldn't do it without giggling because there's no information except they're going to put out a movie on a random day in a very crowded cinematic year. So, I just think this is this is strange. Now, granted, I understand that fans of the franchise want something more after they were disappointed with Terminator Salvation. I get that. And I agree with you, Andrew. I think there's a lot of cool backstory going on that could have been done properly. But, and I'm curious what you guys have to say about this. Salvation wasn't that great. Okay, fine. But, Sarah Connor Chronicles, I think that's what the show was called, right?
Yeah.
Yes.
Sarah Connor. Yeah, that couldn't stay on the air. It seems to me like they're not handling this. Oh, and Rise of the Machine, right? Wasn't that Terminator 3, Rise of the Machines, right? Boy, I'm sorry. I hope this doesn't upset anybody, but that sucked. I mean, I just feel like they haven't gotten it right since Terminator 2. So I hope that they can do something with this really amazing and groundbreaking franchise, and I'm a big fan of the first 2 Terminator movies, especially as a horror junkie. I dig them both, but yeah, I don't know what to make of any of this, but a reboot too just sounds screwy, so I don't know.
Dennis, what do you think?
I'm a big fan of the franchise. And I think, while Terminator Sarah Connor Chronicles wasn't a big ratings hit, it actually was a really fantastic show. It was very well written, very well acted, but it just didn't focus on kind of the things that people were expecting from Terminator. It kind of got a little more philosophical in a way, and not so much action. But I loved it. I think there's a lot more they can tell. I would rather them continue the story, even though I didn't like Salvation. I'd still rather them continue that story than reboot it. And like I said before, bring The Rock into it so he can reprise Arnold's role.
I'm going to have to differ with you on this. I think you got to reboot. I think that they have made, with all the mistakes they've made with Terminator 3 and Terminator 4, and they're starting to step on their own toes. They've started to convolute the story now that it's just kind of collapsing in on itself. And I feel like, okay, you got this great mythology with Terminator, start fresh. Take this great rich mythology of Skynet and the rise of the machines and all that kind of, take that mythology and build a new story around it and start from scratch, because I think continuing it, I think you're building on a very shaky foundation. I think that's what we've been left with, is in the Terminator universe, is a very shaky foundation. It should also be pointed out, too, that Arnold Schwarzenegger is not a lock to be in this at all. There's nothing that says... Schwarzenegger has simply said that he was interested, but that was a while ago. And I believe... Now, you guys, correct me if I'm wrong, but in the latest press release that came out, I don't think Schwarzenegger was mentioned at all in the...
I don't think so.
In the press release that just came out announcing the release date in the summer of 2015, as Clark pointed out, a very crowded summer movie season. But yeah, I gotta say, I think that's the way to go. I do think if you're going to do a Terminator now, I think you got to start over. I think the other story's been told. All you're doing now by continuing it, I think, is just convoluting it more and more and more. And you're not giving it its own foundation to stand on if you're trying to go forward. So yeah, I kind of feel like they're doing the right thing by rebooting it. Now, that's just me. I know some of you guys will have different opinions, but listen, that's all the time we've got for today. Listen, guys, Jump on down into the comments section, will you? Let us know what you think about any of the topics we talked about here today. Tell us if you agree. Tell us if you disagree. One of the most fun things about being a film fan is we get to share different points of view on these movie topics. I love that about being a film fan. We get to debate and discuss, do it respectfully, obviously, but jump on down there and give your thoughts and join the conversation. I want to thank, of course, the two people who've joined me today. First of all, pardon me, Miss Clark Wolf. Clark, thanks for joining us.
Thank you so much, John.
And thank you so much, of course, AMC's production manager, Mr. Dennis Zen.
Thanks for having me.
And thank you most of all to you guys. Hey, listen, while we've got you, do us a favor, stop what you're doing, click the thumbs up button. That's just kind of a way to let us know you appreciate the show and that you like what we're doing. But also click that subscribe button. Become a subscriber to our AMC Movie News YouTube channel. It'll keep you up to date on everything going on in the world of movie news and, of course, our daily AMC Movie Talk show and our weekend AMC Mailbag show. So thanks so much for joining us. My name's John Campia for AMC Movie News, and until next time, bye-bye.